I stand here now, and I feel the ground beneath my feet. You feel it too, wherever you are. There is pressure, a sense of contact. The floor is supporting me, you think. The ground is holding me up. This is not controversial, this is not physics, this is the most basic fact of having a body in the world. Except it is not a fact, it is an interpretation, and the interpretation is wrong. The ground is not holding you up, it has never held you up. What you are feeling right now, that pressure, that sense of being supported, is not the ground doing something for you. It is the ground doing something to you, and you are doing it back with exactly the same magnitude, at exactly the same instant. The sensation you have trusted your entire life, the sensation that tells you the world is solid and you are resting on it, is a lie about the nature of contact itself. Let me be precise. When I say the ground is not holding you, I do not mean it poetically, I mean it in the most literal sense available to physics. The ground is not exerting a force that keeps you from falling because it is strong, because it is solid, because that is what solid things do. The ground is exerting a force because it is failing to collapse, failing to compress, failing to let you through. And that failure, that inability to yield, is not experienced by the ground as stillness, it is experienced by you as pressure. What you call being held is actually being stopped, violently, continuously. Right now, the force has a name. It is called the normal force. The word normal here does not mean ordinary, it means perpendicular. The force acts at a right angle to the surface. If you are standing on flat ground, the normal force points straight up into you, through the soles of your feet, through the bones of your legs, through your spine. The magnitude of this force is exactly equal to your weight. If you weigh 70 kilograms, the ground is pushing up on you with a force of approximately 686 newtons every second, without rest, without pause. You are being hit with 686 newtons of force right now, and the only reason you do not feel it as violence is because you are hitting back with exactly the same force in exactly the opposite direction. This is not how we talk about standing. We say the ground supports us, we say we are resting, we say the floor holds us up. All of these phrases suggest passivity. They suggest the ground is doing something kind, something structural, something consistent with the idea of a platform or a foundation, but the ground is not passive. The ground is pushing. It is pushing with every newton your body can muster in the opposite direction, and if either side faltered for even an instant, the equilibrium would collapse. You would accelerate, you would fall. Not because the ground stopped holding you, because the forces stopped being equal. Let me take you down to where this happens. Not in the experience of your body, but in the structure of matter itself. You are standing on a floor. The floor feels solid, but solid is not a thing matter does. Solid is a macro-scale illusion produced by forces that operate at a scale where nothing you think of as solid exists at all. Your foot is made of atoms. The floor is made of atoms. Atoms are not solid. They are almost entirely empty space. The nucleus of an atom occupies a region about 1/10,000th the diameter of the atom itself. If you scaled an atom up so the nucleus were the size of a marble, the nearest electron cloud would be half a kilometer away. Everything in between is nothing, empty space, vacuum. Your foot is mostly nothing. The floor is mostly nothing. When your foot is on the floor, what is actually happening is that two regions of mostly nothing are getting close to each other, and something is preventing them from occupying the same space. That something is the electromagnetic force. Specifically, it is the repulsion between the electron clouds in the atoms of your foot and the electron clouds in the atoms of the floor. Electrons carry negative charge. Negative charges repel each other. As the electron clouds approach, the repulsion grows stronger. It grows stronger very quickly. The electromagnetic force is one of the four fundamental forces in nature. It is not weak. It is not gentle. It is the force that holds molecules together, that makes chemistry possible, that determines whether matter is liquid or solid or gas. And it is operating at full strength between your feet and the floor right now. The atoms in your foot do not touch. The atoms in the floor, they cannot touch. Touching, in the sense of two surfaces meeting and making contact, does not happen at the atomic scale. What happens instead is that the electron clouds repel each other with a force that increases as the distance between them decreases. At some distance, that repulsive force becomes large enough to balance the force of your weight pushing down. At that distance, the atoms stop getting closer. Not because they have touched, because the electromagnetic repulsion is now equal to the gravitational force pulling you downward. the system reaches equilibrium. That equilibrium is what you feel as the ground beneath your feet. It is not contact, it is repulsion. You are not resting on the floor. You are hovering above it at a distance of a few atomic diameters, held there by the electromagnetic force that refuses to let the electron clouds overlap. The sensation of solidity, of support, of being held, that is the sensation of being repelled constantly, at the atomic level, by a force so strong and so finely balanced that your conscious mind interprets it as stillness. Now let me show you what this means for the normal force. You have been taught, perhaps, that the normal force is the ground's reaction to your weight. You push down on the ground with a force equal to your mass times the acceleration due to gravity. The ground pushes back with an equal and opposite force. Newton's third law, action and reaction. This is correct, but it is not complete, because it makes it sound as though the ground is choosing to push back, as though the ground is doing you a favor, as though the normal force is the ground's response to your presence. It is not. The ground is not responding to you. The ground is incapable of doing anything else. The normal force is not the ground's action. It is the ground's failure to collapse, and that failure is redirected into you as force. Here is what I mean. When you stand on the ground, your weight exerts a force downward. That force tries to compress the ground. At the macroscopic scale, the ground does compress very slightly. The surface deforms. But at the atomic scale, something else happens. The atoms in the ground are pushed closer together. The electron clouds are pushed closer together. The electromagnetic repulsion between them increases. At some point, the repulsion becomes so strong that the atoms cannot be compressed any further. Not because the ground is strong, because the electromagnetic force will not allow the electron clouds to overlap. The ground cannot collapse. It has nowhere to go. And so the force that is trying to compress it, your weight, is redirected upward into you. The normal force is not the ground pushing up because it is solid. It is the ground pushing up because it has failed to compress, and the force has to go somewhere. The force you feel in your feet is not support. It is blocked catastrophe. The ground is trying to collapse under your weight and cannot, and the only way the universe has to express that failure is to push back into you with a force exactly equal to the force you are exerting downward. The normal force is the remainder of a subtraction that cannot be completed. It is not the ground's kindness, it is the ground's physics. Let me give you the numbers, because numbers make this real. A human body standing still exerts a pressure on the ground. Pressure is force per unit area. If you weigh 70 kilograms, your weight is approximately 686 newtons. The contact area between your feet and the ground is roughly 300 square centimeters, or 0.03 square meters. The pressure you exert on the ground is therefore about 23,000 pascals. A pascal is 1 newton per square meter. 23,000 pascals is not a large pressure by engineering standards. It is a fraction of atmospheric pressure, which is about 101,000 pascals at sea level, but it is not nothing. It is enough to compress soft materials. It is enough to leave a footprint in sand, an indentation in a carpet, a mark in snow, but concrete does not compress visibly under 23,000 pascals. Steel does not compress visibly. Even wood does not compress much. Why? Because at the atomic scale, the electromagnetic forces holding those materials together are vastly stronger than the pressure you can exert by standing on them. The atoms in the concrete are already packed as close together as the electromagnetic force will allow. Your weight tries to push them closer. The electromagnetic force says no. The repulsion increases until it matches your weight. The surface deforms by a distance so small you could not measure it without precision instruments, nanometers, perhaps, or less, and then stops. The atoms have compressed as far as they're going to compress. The force has nowhere to go but back into you. Now consider what happens if the surface is softer. You stand on a mattress. The mattress compresses, visibly, substantially. You sink into it. Does this mean the normal force is smaller? No. The normal force is still equal to your weight. It has to be. If the normal force were smaller than your weight, the net force on you would be downward, and you would accelerate downward. You would keep sinking. But you do not keep sinking. You sink until the mattress has compressed enough that the normal force equals your weight, and then you stop. The mattress compresses more than concrete because the structure of the mattress, the foam, the springs, the air gaps allows the atoms to rearrange themselves over a larger distance before the electromagnetic forces balance your weight, but the end point is the same. the normal force equals your weight. The system reaches equilibrium. You stop moving. The softer the surface, the more it compresses before equilibrium is reached. The harder the surface, the less it compresses. But in every case, the normal force at equilibrium is exactly equal to your weight. This is not because different surfaces are trying to help you by different amounts. This is because equilibrium is the condition where the forces balance, and if the forces do not balance, equilibrium has not been reached. The normal force adjusts to match your weight because that is the only stable state the system can occupy. The surface compresses until it cannot compress anymore without the electromagnetic repulsion exceeding your weight, and then it stops. The normal force is not chosen, it is determined by your weight and by the electromagnetic force and by nothing else. And now, I want you to consider what this means about the surfaces you trust. You walk across a floor and you do not think about whether it will hold you. You sit in a chair and you do not wonder whether it will collapse. You lie down in bed and you do not question whether the mattress will support you through the night. This trust is automatic. It is pre-reflective. It is built into the way you move through the world. But that trust is not trust in the surface. It is trust in the electromagnetic force. The floor holds you, not because the floor is kind, not because the floor is designed to hold you, but because the atoms in the floor are held together by electromagnetic forces strong enough that your weight cannot compress them beyond the point of equilibrium. If those forces were weaker, the floor would collapse. If those forces were stronger, well, they cannot be stronger. The electromagnetic force is what it is. It is a constant of nature. The strength of the interaction between charged particles is fixed by the structure of the universe. The floor holds you because the universe is built in such a way that electromagnetic repulsion is strong enough to resist the gravitational attraction between you and the Earth. That is all. There is no other reason. There is no deeper reason. And here is the uncomfortable part. The electromagnetic force does not care about you. It does not care whether you are standing or falling. It does not care whether you are comfortable or in pain. It does not care whether you live or die. It is not a force that acts on your behalf. It is a force that acts according to the laws of physics, and the laws of physics do not have intentions. The normal force is not the ground helping you. It is the ground obeying the electromagnetic force, which is obeying the structure of quantum field theory, which is obeying mathematics that has no opinion about whether you should be held up or allowed to fall. You are held up because the mathematics says the forces must balance at equilibrium. If the mathematics said something else, you would fall, the ground would let you through. And the universe would not pause to ask whether that was fair. Let me take you to a place where the ground does let you through. You are standing on ice, thin ice. The ice is a solid. It is made of water molecules locked into a crystalline structure by hydrogen bonds and van der Waals forces, both of which are manifestations of the electromagnetic force. The ice is holding you up. The normal force is equal to your weight. You are in equilibrium, and then the ice cracks. What happens in that instant? The structure of the ice fails, the hydrogen bonds break, the crystalline lattice collapses, the atoms that were held in place by electromagnetic forces are suddenly free to move. The ice is no longer a solid. It is fragments, and fragments cannot exert a normal force sufficient to balance your weight because they are not connected to each other anymore. The electromagnetic forces that were holding the ice together are still operating. The atoms still repel each other at close range, but the macroscopic structure has failed. The normal force drops. It drops below your weight. The net force on you is now downward. You accelerate, you fall through. This is not a failure of the normal force. The normal force is still there. The fragments of ice are still pushing up on you with whatever force the electromagnetic repulsion can muster. But the structure is gone, and without the structure, the force is not enough. The ice cannot hold you, not because the electromagnetic force stopped working, but because the arrangement of atoms that allowed the electromagnetic force to produce a macroscopic normal force has collapsed. The ground let you through not because it wanted to, but because the physics left it no choice. You are afraid of thin ice. Everyone is afraid of thin ice. But what you are afraid of is not the ice. What you are afraid of is the moment when the structure fails and the normal force drops below your weight. What you are afraid of is the transition from equilibrium to acceleration, from being held, from being pushed up to falling. And that fear is not irrational. That fear is an acknowledgement that the ground is not holding you because it cares whether you fall. The ground is holding you because the structure of matter at this temperature, under this pressure, with this arrangement of atoms, produces a normal force equal to your weight. When the structure fails, the normal force fails. When the normal force fails, you fall. The universe does not intervene, the universe does not care. And now I want you to feel this, not as abstraction, as sensation. You are standing or sitting right now, there is pressure. In your feet, if you are standing, in your seat and your thighs, if you are sitting, you have felt this pressure 10,000 times and never thought about it. It is background. It is the condition of having a body. But now I am asking you to feel it as what it is. That pressure is not the surface holding you, it is the surface failing to let you through. The atoms in that surface are being compressed by your weight, and they are compressing as far as the electromagnetic force will allow, and then they are pushing back into you. The pressure you feel is the sum of billions of atomic scale collisions happening simultaneously across the surface of contact between your body and the world. Each collision is a repulsion. Each repulsion is a force. The forces add up. The sum is the normal force. The normal force is what you are feeling right now. If you are standing, the ground is pushing up into your feet with hundreds of newtons of force. If you weigh more, it is pushing with more force. If you weigh less, it is pushing with less. The magnitude adjusts instantly, automatically, to match your weight exactly. Not because the ground knows your weight, because the system reaches equilibrium. Your weight compresses the ground until the electromagnetic repulsion equals your weight, and then the compression stops. The normal force is equal to your weight because those are the only two forces in the system, and if they were not equal, you would be accelerating. You are not accelerating, therefore they are equal. This is not the ground helping you. This is physics having no other option. Now, let me take this one step further, because this is where the real strangeness lives. You think of standing still as rest. You think of sitting as rest. You think of lying down as rest. Rest means no forces, no motion, no work being done. Rest means the body is not acting and the world is not acting on the body. Rest means stillness. But stillness is not the absence of force. Stillness is the exact balance of forces. And balance is not the same thing as rest. When you stand still, two forces are acting on you. Your weight pulls you down with a force of mg, where m is your mass and g is the acceleration due to gravity, approximately 9.8 meters per second squared. The normal force pushes you up with a force of exactly mg in the opposite direction. The net force is zero. Because the net force is zero, you do not accelerate. Because you do not accelerate, you remain still. But zero net force is not the same as no force. You are subject to two forces right now, each one substantial, each one real, each one acting on your body with full magnitude. The only reason you are not crushed is because they are equal and opposite. The only reason you are not falling is because they are equal and opposite. The only reason you experience this as stillness is because your nervous system has no mechanism to distinguish between no forces acting and two equal and opposite forces acting. The sensation is the same. The physics is not. Think about what this means. Every moment you have spent standing still has been a moment of active force. Every moment you have spent sitting has been a moment of active force. Every moment you have spent lying in bed, feeling the mattress beneath you, feeling supported, feeling at rest, that has been a moment of continuous collision between your body and the surface, mediated by electromagnetic repulsion, producing a normal force equal in magnitude to your weight and opposite in direction. You have never, not for one instant, been at rest in the way you think of rest. You have been in equilibrium. And equilibrium is not rest. It is war with no victor. I can make this more precise. The work done by the normal force on you while you stand still is zero. Work is defined as force times displacement in the direction of the force. If there is no displacement, there is no work. You are not moving. Therefore, the normal force does no work on you. This is correct. But it is not the same as saying the normal force does nothing. The normal force is acting. It is acting with full magnitude. It is pressing into you with hundreds of newtons right now. The fact that it does no work does not mean it is not real. It means the definition of work does not capture what is happening. What is happening is this. You are caught between two refusals. Gravity refuses to let you float away. The electromagnetic force refuses to let you fall through the ground. Neither force yields. Neither force diminishes. Neither force takes a break while you sleep. The system is locked. And the sensation of that locked system, the sensation of two enormous forces crashing into each other, and producing no motion. That is what you call standing still. But consider now what happens when the system is not locked. You jump. For an instant, you are in the air. Your feet are not touching the ground. The normal force is 0. Only one force acts on you, gravity. The net force is no longer 0, it is mg pointing down. You accelerate downward at 9.8 meters per second squared. This is not a new force. Gravity was acting on you the entire time you were standing, but while you were standing, the normal force cancelled it. Now the normal force is gone, gravity is unopposed, you fall, and then you land, your feet hit the ground. In that instant, the normal force returns, but it does not return gently. It does not return at exactly mg, it returns much larger. Because you are not landing at rest. You are landing with velocity, you are moving downward, and the ground must not only balance your weight, it must also stop your motion. It must decelerate you from whatever velocity you had when you landed to 0 velocity in the fraction of a second it takes for your legs to flex and your body to come to rest. The force required to do this is much larger than mg. The peak normal force during a landing can be 2, 3, 5 times your body weight depending on how fast you were falling and how quickly you decelerate. If you weigh 70 kilograms and you land with a peak normal force of 3 times your weight, the ground is pushing up on you with a force of about 2,060 newtons. For a fraction of a second, you are subject to a force 3 times larger than the force that holds you up when you stand still. You feel this. You feel it in your knees, in your ankles, in the bones of your legs. You feel it as impact, as shock, as something violent that was not there before. But the violence is not new. The violence was always there. When you were standing still, the normal force was pushing into you with 686 newtons. When you land, the normal force pushes into you with 2,060 newtons. The magnitude changed, the nature of the force did not. It is still the electromagnetic repulsion between the atoms in your feet and the atoms in the ground. It is still the ground failing to let you through and redirecting your momentum back into you as force. The only difference is the magnitude. And the magnitude is larger because the ground must do more than hold you. It must stop you. This is what the normal force is. It is the force required to prevent you from passing through the ground. When you are standing still, that force is equal to your weight. When you are landing from a jump, that force is much larger. When you are accelerating upward, standing in an elevator that is accelerating upward, for example, the normal force is larger still. It must not only balance your weight, but also provide the net upward force required to accelerate you. The normal force is not a fixed thing. It is whatever force is required at this instant to keep the atoms in your body from passing through the atoms in the surface below you. It adjusts continuously, automatically, without your input and without your permission. And here's the thing I need you to sit with. You cannot feel the difference between a normal force of 686 newtons and a normal force of 700 newtons. You cannot feel the difference between standing on concrete and standing on steel, even though the microscopic compression is different. You cannot feel the atomic scale repulsion that is actually producing the force. What you feel is pressure, a macroscopic sensation, a sum of billions of interactions that your nervous system integrates into a single feeling. The ground is beneath me. I am supported. But that feeling is not the ground supporting you. That feeling is your nervous system's interpretation of a normal force produced by electromagnetic repulsion at the atomic scale. The feeling is real. The interpretation is wrong. You are not supported, you are repelled. And you have been repelled every moment of your life. Every moment you have spent standing, sitting, lying down, leaning against a wall, resting your hand on a table, every one of those moments has been a moment of electromagnetic repulsion, producing a normal force that your nervous system interpreted as support. The sensation is consistent, the sensation is reliable, the sensation is a lie. Now I am going to ask you to do something. Stand up if you are sitting, or if you are standing, pay attention to your feet, feel the ground beneath you, feel the pressure, the distribution of weight across the sole of your foot, the slight ache in your arches if you have been standing a long time, the sense of contact, of solidity of the ground being there. That sensation is not the ground holding you, it is the ground pushing into you with a force equal to your weight because it cannot do anything else. The ground is not solid in the way you think solid means. It is a field of electromagnetic repulsion that has reached equilibrium with the gravitational force pulling you down. The pressure you feel is not support, it is collision. continuous, atomic scale, mediated by one of the four fundamental forces of the universe. You are not resting on the ground, you are hovering nanometers above it, held at that distance by a force that will not let you through and will not let you go. And here is the thing I need you to understand. The thing that makes this more than a curiosity, more than a reframing of terms, the thing that makes this matter. You have lived your entire life inside the sensation of being held. The ground holds you, the chair holds you, the bed holds you. This is foundational. This is the first thing you learned as an infant, that the world is solid and you can rest on it. That trust is so deep you do not even notice it anymore. It is the condition of being alive in a body. But that trust is based on a misunderstanding of what is happening. The world is not solid. The world is mostly empty space held apart by forces. You are not resting on it. You are colliding with it in a state of perfect equilibrium that your nervous system interprets as stillness. And the word holding, the word that describes your entire relationship with physical reality, that word does not apply. The ground is not holding you. It is refusing to let you through. Those are not the same thing. Holding implies care. Holding implies intention. Holding implies that the ground is doing something for you, that it has chosen to keep you from falling, that there is some relationship between you and the surface that is more than physics, but there is no relationship. There is only the electromagnetic force operating according to laws that do not know you exist. The ground does not hold you because it cares whether you fall. The ground pushes you up because the electron clouds in its atoms repel the electron clouds in your atoms, and the magnitude of that repulsion at equilibrium equals your weight. That is all. That is everything. There is nothing else. I am not telling you this to comfort you. I am not telling you this to make the world more wondrous or more beautiful. I am telling you this because it is true, and the truth does not care whether it comforts you. The ground is not holding you up. It is pushing you away. It has always been pushing you away. Every moment of stability you have ever felt has been a moment of mutual repulsion balanced so perfectly that you mistook it for support. And now you know. And you cannot unknow it. The pressure in your feet right now, that is not the ground being kind. That is the electromagnetic force operating at full strength, refusing to let the atoms in your feet overlap with the atoms in the floor, and redirecting your weight back into you as force. The real force beneath your feet is not support, it is refusal. And refusal is not the same as holding, it never was. You are standing on nothing. You have always been standing on nothing. The only thing between you and the collapse of everything you think of as solid is a force that will not yield, and the only reason you feel anything at all is because you cannot yield either. That is not rest. That is equilibrium, and equilibrium does not care how you feel about it. The ground is not holding you up, it is holding you out, and it will never stop.